Hey, and in this video I talk about how stress works in a way to help you understand what happens when your breathing shallows, your focus narrows, and your self-talk screams, how are we going to get out of this rubbish situation? And stick around because I will share a quick trick to help reduce your stress levels fast. In the classic film Falling Down, Michael Douglas plays a man down on his luck who, in the intense heat of an LA gridlock traffic, finally flips, going on a rampage. This is a great metaphor of what happens when stress reaches crisis point, and like a pressure cooker, at some point that pressure explodes. We've all seen the meme videos of an office guy standing up and sending his computer flying across the floor. If you don't want this to happen to you, the first step is to understand what stress is and how it works. The Greek philosopher Aristotle remarked, "Suffering becomes beautiful when anyone bears great calamities with cheerfulness, not through insensibility, but through greatness of mind." Within this quote holds some of the hallmarks of stress, that within a context there is different ways to respond. Yet, the evidence suggests that as a population, we're certainly not meeting great calamities with great cheerfulness. According to the Mental Health Foundation in 2018, 74% of UK adults have felt so stressed at some point over the last year they felt overwhelmed and unable to cope. It is unlikely to have subsided since then with COVID. And in the UK, it is estimated that 17.9 million workdays were missed between 2019 and 2020 as a result of stress and its cousins, anxiety and depression. One of the best ways to tackle stress is by nurturing your health and fitness. This channel, Fit by Health, gives you all the latest tactics and strategies to do that. So why not go ahead and subscribe to this channel at the bottom right of this video. So what is stress? The charity Mind UK doesn't provide an overarching definition of stress, but does point out that when talking about stress, we tend to be referring to A, a situation or event, and B, a reaction to the situation or event. They also mention that stress can be a precursor to anxiety and depression, but it's more likely to be a loop where anxiety and depression can also increase the levels of stress. The Mental Health Foundation notes that stress can be defined as the degree to which you feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. Now, whilst these definitions are great, my favourite is from neuroendocrinologist and stress researcher Robert Sapolsky. Sapolsky defines stress as a challenge to homeostatic balance. The stress response is the adaptation your body uses to re-establish homeostasis. So we have the definitions. So how does this play out in actual life? So we're going to start with a very basic model. Data, interpretation / meaning, emotion, feeling, and then behavior. So we start with data. Every second of the day, your senses are picking up information from your immediate environment. All this starts as data, nothing more than electrical charges that travel in via our senses and venture towards your brain. When it gets to your brain, it has to be interpreted. It is at this point, large swarms of that data is disregarded as largely irrelevant. The data that stays, if the information is deemed significant and immediate, a pre-conscious response is initiated. An example of this would be a phobia, where if someone walks out in front of you when driving, you don't think consciously, you just do. If the data is deemed significant and a response is required, your brain begins initiating a response. Bear in mind this takes milliseconds. How it determines a response is largely based on your past experiences, or if it is a new experience, similar experiences from the past. With all responses comes emotion. So we never consciously experience emotion. We experience a feeling associated with that emotion. So up until now, all of this has happened outside your awareness. So now conscious awareness comes into play. We become aware of feeling and we create a narrative of why we're feeling that way. Both unconscious suggestions, so past experiences, beliefs, values, etc., and conscious narratives will play a big influence on the behavior you decide upon in the situation. So this works as a cycle because how you respond creates new data for your senses, and so the loop continues. Let's take a simple example. It's morning. A bill comes through your letterbox. This is data. Your brain determines what it is. Maybe the money is tight at the moment. Your brain takes this into account. So that's interpretation. An emotion is determined based on your current circumstances. Someone who has a high disposable income is going to respond to a bill differently to someone who is with a low disposable income. So this is emotion. A feeling is assigned to the emotion. Maybe a dull feeling in the pit of your stomach. That's feeling. All of this happens in an instant when you see the brand on the envelope. Consciously, you become aware that it is a bill and behave accordingly. Maybe you open it. Maybe you put it under a pile of other letters by the door. So this would be classed as behavior. So I'll let you to try an exercise for a moment. Take a timer, and without consciously trying to change in any way, I'd like you to count the number of full breaths you do in 1 minute. A full breath equals 1 breath in and 1 breath out. Okay, so stop the video and try the exercise. So now you're back. When discussing the area of stress, we need to talk about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. When your brain interprets a threat, it has a number of options of how to respond. On a primal level, the options are fight, flight, or freeze. When this happens, the sympathetic nervous system is activated. In this state, adrenaline is released, blood is diverted to the extremities ready to fight or get the hell out of there, and away from non-essential activities such as digestion. You will also encounter tunnel vision. This is great for generating alertness and vigilance, but as with most states, it is when it is a prolonged state that problems arise. When you breathe in, you activate your sympathetic nervous system. It's not bad. In fact, it can be useful in certain breathwork activities. The other end of the coin is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is a part of the nervous system synonymous with rest and digest. You can activate your parasympathetic nervous system when you exhale in your breath. When I see a new client, I ask them to take 5 deep breaths. 95% of the time, they share 2 characteristics. They're mouth breathers and they breathe from the chest and not the diaphragm. The problem with this way of breathing is that it can only really induce short, shallow breaths. This style of breathing is more conducive with stress and anxiety. In order to take full advantage of the parasympathetic nervous system, you have to be able to take full advantage of the exhale. This means breathing through the nose and expanding the diaphragm in a way that allows a full, elongated exhale. This is why I asked you to do the exercise a minute ago. In a style of breathing work known as Buteyko breathing, one of their arguments is that we are a nation of overbreathers. This means taking in more oxygen than we need to. During a panic attack, hyperventilation and asthma, when we take in up to 20 litres of air a minute, when the average would be 6 litres. One simple way to measure this is by counting how many breaths you do in a rested state in 60 seconds. And this is known as your respiratory rate. So the average is around about 12 breaths a minute. The common traits of overbreathers are mouth breaths and chest breathing. If you haven't worked out yet, it is hard to reduce the amount of breaths a minute via the inhale. It has to come from extending your exhale, thus increasing the time in the parasympathetic nervous system. It is important to note your body can handle stress. For example, exercise has seen as stress on the body. The body can handle adrenaline and it can handle cortisol. The key word here is when talking about stress is when it's prolonged. The body does not like prolonged presence of cortisol in the body. Overstimulation of a stress state in the body can lead to a number of problems, including suppressed immune system leading to more illness, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, enhanced memory issues, increased chances of anxiety and depression. This is why it is important to realize prolonged stress is both a problem physically and psychologically. So before we go, I'd like to give a quick bonus and a really quick way to reduce your stress, and that is to go in any area where there's greenery and observe what is in your immediate environment. The swaying of the trees, if there's any dogs roaming around, people chatting, birds singing. This benefits you in two ways. One, it is scientifically shown that in green, urban or rural surroundings, it can reduce your levels of stress. And two, it helps put your intention externally rather than inside your head, which can amplify levels of stress. In the comments box below, I'd love for you to comment on how you deal with stress or have problems dealing with stress and how it gets on top of you. So I hope explaining how stress works helps in recognizing that it can happen to anyone and go some way to help reduce your levels of stress. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to this channel for more value on how to get fitter and healthier every single day. And I'll see you in the next video.